Greetings everyone, and welcome back to another in-depth look at another flagship phone that I sort of agreed to look at last minute, but this is basically a part 2 to the Nubia Z60 Ultra review that I recently did a couple of weeks back. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up the top for you if you want to check that out first. Because the phone that I'm taking a look at today is essentially the same as that, but it's a gaming phone. It's the Redmagic 9S Pro. And while I'm not going to be going super in-depth in this video like I usually do with all my other reviews, this is going to be a comparison between the Z60 Ultra and the Redmagic 9S Pro. The Redmagic 9S Pro has been out since July of this year, but a new colorway called Frost, which is an all-white back, is being launched on the 12th of September. There's no differences between colorways in terms of the specifications, they are all the same. Now, as I said, the reason why I'll be comparing the Redmagic 9S Pro and the Nubia Z60 Ultra is because they are the same phone. The Z60 Ultra has better cameras and an IP rating, but the Redmagic 9S Pro has a slightly higher clocked processor, a bigger battery, and a built-in cooling fan, and some touch buttons on the side. Both use the exact same display and they look fairly similar, so I'll be doing benchmarks and gaming between the two to see how far apart the 8 Gen 3 standard to the 8 Gen 3 leading version is. Since the Redmagic is a gaming orientated phone and both phones are the exact same price as well, being $649 US, and that's also before tax. I don't expect too much of a performance increase, but it should be enough to push this to become the most powerful phone I'll review on the channel. So a massive thank you to Redmagic for sending this sample out to me for a review. I really do appreciate it, and I want to clarify that I've not been paid for this review. All opinions in this one are my own, and I aim to be as honest and upfront as I can about this device. And I also have to select paid promotion on YouTube since I've received an item of value from a third party, but rest assured I have not been paid to look at this. They've just sent the sample out to me for a review, and that is what I'm here to do. If you'd like to take a look at the Redmagic 9S Pro, you can check out the link in the description, which is not an affiliate link. I won't earn anything if you go there and check the phone out. It's just there for your convenience. Alternatively, you can jump onto Google and check it on other sites. That's completely up to you. Also, don't forget that timestamps are available for you to skip through this video if you need to. If you want to go straight to the camera test or benchmarks or even the teardown, those timestamps will help you get there. So I will say straight off the bat, I'm a channel that focuses on cheaper tech and not much expensive tech. So this is another reason why I'm comparing it to the Z60 Ultra, because that's the only other device that I have that's at the price range of the Redmagic and also similar in terms of specs. But you will find that the Redmagic 9S Pro is currently $649 US on Redmagic's official site, and that's before tax, so please take that into consideration. This is also for the Frost colorway with 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. So I'll display SMOOREZ' Jan currency conversion chart on screen for what it's currently retailing at on the official site, so you get a rough idea of how much this costs, but you may find it cheaper elsewhere. The $649 US is what they're asking from their official site. And yes, I know gaming phones are sort of a gimmick because you can have a normal phone that plays games, but what makes this special is that it has the extras to make it work better for gaming, like buttons, dedicated software for gaming, and a better cooling system that implements a small little fan to just help with the heat dissipation, which I will be definitely testing out in this video. Also, the Redmagic 9S Pro gets some bonus points because it has a headphone jack, which is pretty cool. So let me tell you the full specs of the Redmagic so you know exactly what you're getting for the money. There's 4 color choices for this, including Design Sleet, which is black, Snowfall, which is silver, Cyclone, which is transparent black, and then we have Frost, which is the white version. And as mentioned, I'll be looking at the new Frost colorway. We have an aviation grade aluminium frame, glass back and glass front, which is protected by Gorilla Glass 5. This does not have an IP certification due to the ventilation in the phone for the fan, but there are some small measures implemented to help keep some water and dust out. The phone weighs 229 grams, and the dimensions of it are 164 by 76.4 by 8.9 millimeters. The system on chip is the Qualcomm Snapdragon Gen 3 leading version and is based on a 4nm manufacturing process. This is an octa-core processor with a turbo frequency of 3.4 GHz, and as far as I can tell, the only difference between the standard 8 Gen 3 and the 8 Gen 3 leading version is the slightly higher clock speed and higher clock GPU, which is the Adreno 750 at 1 GHz. As seen in the Z60 Ultra review, this system on chip will handle anything you throw at it. It's top tier stuff until Qualcomm release the next generation Snapdragon chips, which will be soon. RAM is 12 gig of LPDDR5X, and you can also get this with 16 gigs of RAM if you wanted to, but I think 12 gig is plenty enough. We get 256 gigs of onboard storage with no microSD card slot, which I would have liked to have seen on this, but it is what it is. You can get this up to only 512 gigs of storage, which I would have expected to see a 1TB variant or even a 2TB variant because it's a gaming phone, but it's not available on the 9S Pro. The display on this is the 6.8 inch 1116 by 2480 20x9 120Hz OLED with 1 billion colors and 1500 nits peak brightness. Same display that was on the Nubia, even though it's only 1080p, it's still a pretty great display for what it is. There's also a pre-applied screen protector on this out of the box, and this also features the under-screen camera seen on the Nubia, but I'll talk about that very soon. We've got kind of a triple camera setup on the back, including a 50 megapixel standard camera with optical image stabilization, a 50 megapixel ultra wide with no optical image stabilization, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor, which it's not the greatest camera setup considering what was seen on the Nubia, but at least we have a main sensor with OIS and an ultra wide sensor. Not too sure about having a depth sensor on this, it just kind of feels a little bit cheap to have, and it would have been better to have a basic telephoto on this, but once again, it is what it is at the end of the day. You can do up to 8K 30fps with the main sensor and 4K 60fps with the ultra wide sensor. There's also a dual LED on the back as well. The front camera is 16 megapixels with fixed focus and can only do 1080p video at 30fps. This is the underscreen camera, and from what I've seen on the Nubia, the camera quality does lack due to it being underscreen, but it does get hidden when using the phone as the pixel layer on top of it switches on, and you can still see it if you look close enough. Especially on an all-white screen, you can see that little blob just at the top, and that does slightly annoy me, and it may annoy you as well, so I'll be sure to show it in this video. But if you do want to see the quality of this camera, I highly suggest jumping to the camera test to check out the quality of it, because to some folks, it may be unacceptable. The battery in this is 6,500 mAh and is also bundled with an 80 watt fast charger, which can get you from 0 to 100% in about 40 minutes according to my testing, which is actually faster than the Nubia. I thought they would have been the same, but the battery in this is a dual cell design, which explains the faster charging. No wireless charging on this, but I guess that's okay, since if you're doing gaming with this, you'll likely have it plugged in and charging, but it still would have been cool if it was added. We've got Redmagic OS 9.0 on this, based on Android 14, and Redmagic has added a bit on top of Android, including customization options and some games that can be downloaded to play on this, and unfortunately you can't uninstall these shortcuts. We do have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, NFC, USB Type-C 3.2 Gen 2 with on-the-go support, as well as working as an accessory connector and a display port to output it to a TV, which is pretty cool. As mentioned earlier, we have a headphone jack on this, which is awesome to see. No FM radio though, but that's fine. We have an underscreen optical fingerprint sensor, as well as a bunch of other sensors, including a gyroscope, proximity, ambient light sensor, and a sensor hub. This phone also has stereo speakers, which is always awesome to see, and they take advantage of Snapdragon sound, so I'll be sure to test them in this review. And what makes this a gaming phone is the built-in 22,000 RPM cooling fan that has RGB. That fan can get quite noisy at full speed, but it's such a tiny little fan, and I'll be sure to show you it later on. We also have a built-in light strip on the back, as well as the included 2 touch buttons located on the side of the phone. These have a touch sampling rate of 520 Hz, and I'll also be sure to show you these later on. There is a switch on the side of the phone that I thought would be a customizable switch, but it's just a switch to open the Redmagic app for gaming, and you can't reassign this to any other function, which is unfortunate. Now we come to networks. Not sure how well this will work in other countries, but for here in Australia, it works on Optus, Vodafone, and Telstra from my testing. So I'll show the bands list on screen, which is directly from Redmagic themselves. So if you do consider purchasing this, just make sure that you double check with your network provider to ensure that it does work in your country. This also offers dual SIM support with both SIMs running at 5G, but there's no eSIM support on this, unfortunately. And in the box, we get the phone itself, a clear case, the 80 watt fast charger, Type-C, USB cable, SIM eject tool, warranty card, and some other documentation. So that's all the specs of the 9S Pro. As you just heard, we've got flagship specs in this that'll handle basically anything you throw at it. But what is really interesting is that tiny little cooling fan, the side buttons, and the RGB strip to complete this phone's gaming look. But Redmagic say that their Redmagic Ice 13.5 cooling system cuts temperatures by up to 19.5 degrees with its 10-layer design featuring 22,000 RPM airflow and 30% better heat dissipation. It also includes customizable RGB lighting. So is having a cooling fan on a phone a gimmick? It is a little bit, but I will talk about that later in this video. So will the 9S Pro be a game changer? Let's jump to the unboxing and take a look at it. Here's the box for the Redmagic 9S Pro. It says win more games at the top there, and the Redmagic logo and wording sort of pops out from the box, but yeah, it's all silver, looks pretty cool. And inside the box we do have a quick start guide, a warranty card, and the pre-included case with this. The phone itself, which definitely has a lot of heft to it. We also have another character there for Redmagic, not sure who that is. And we get a Type-C to Type-C red USB cable and the 80 watt fast charger that was seen on the Nubia Z60 Ultra. Now, while I did like the Z60 Ultra's design, I do prefer this because we don't have a huge camera bump, so it can just sit flat on a desk. It's not gonna tilt or anything, and even with the case on it, which isn't a full protective case, but they had to leave space because of the capacitive buttons at the top. But yeah, even with the case on, which is a nice snug fit, it sits nice and flat, which I'm quite happy with. The exact same screen that was on the Z60 Ultra is also here as well. We do have a plastic screen protector already applied, and of course at the top we do see the front 16 megapixel camera that is underneath the display. Around the phone, we have a channel for the top speaker, an IR blaster, as well as a headphone jack, which is great to see. Around the side, we do have some antenna lines, as well as some vents for the fan to push and pull air out of this. At the bottom, we have our SIM tray, Type-C port, capable of 80-watt fast charging, and the bottom speaker channel. On the other side is where things get really interesting, because we do have the two 520Hz buttons, the same switch that was seen on the Z60 Ultra, which has a red accent, which is cool, the power button, which is right in the middle of the phone, the volume rocker, and the second vent for the fan. Holding it in my hands, it really does feel quite premium, exactly like the Z60 Ultra, just a little bit less weight-wise, and obviously without that huge camera bump, because on the back we have the 50 megapixel main sensor with OIS, then we also have the 50 megapixel ultra wide, and then the 2 megapixel depth sensor, which is just there, which is not going to do a whole lot. I'll see what it does during the camera test. And of course we have the little fan there with RGB. And the whole thing with this is that it's their new colorway Frost, which looks pretty cool, and you've got some detailing on the back there which you can't really see, but we've got Redmagic, and it says right to shot just at the top there, and win more games 2024 Redmagic just there. So let's start the comparison with the Z60 Ultra. So side by side, they're pretty much exactly the same height, and then moving to the side, instead of the red power button, we've just got the little silver button just there. The mute switch is almost in the same place. Volume rockers are also in a different place, but once again, pretty much the same flat-edged frame that's on this. Bottom looks almost the same, just a different speaker grill on the Z60. Obviously, no ventilation on the Z60. But yeah, the best thing about the Redmagic is having a headphone jack, which is really great to see. Why couldn't the Z60 Ultra come with a headphone jack as well? Because there is plenty of room for it. At least it's on the 9S Pro. So popping out the SIM tray, we do have a red rubber ring around it to prevent water from getting in. Even though there's no official IP rating, there's probably some measures that have been taken to prevent water and dust from getting inside of this thing. But I'll just load my Telstra SIM into this, and let's power on the 9S Pro. The vibration motor in this appears to be stronger than the one that's in the Z60 Ultra. So I've set pretty much everything up, but I've just got to this, which is popped up, which is the recommended apps, which is a whole bunch of games that you can install on this. Luckily, you can choose not to install them, so I'll just go ahead and cancel that. And finally, we've booted up. We do have a couple of extra apps on this, like Gopa, Booking.com, another browser, Hot Apps, which is a VPN, and another game there. And we also have hot games there as well. And it doesn't look like you can actually delete these either. Having the phones side by side, it's the exact same display. So we have the 1600 nits max brightness on both devices, and as you can see, it's working there. And since they are the same display, both running at 120Hz, all the colors and the resolution look pretty good. And looking at the under-screen cameras as well, I can see the white blob over the top of the cameras, which you will start to notice after some time with using these, especially with games and watching videos. You do notice that there. So as I said in the Z60 review, I would have rather just the hole punch. Otherwise, settings looks exactly the same, but we do have a couple of extra things on the Redmagic because it's more focused towards gaming. Just like the Z60 Ultra, it feels extremely snappy, as it should, considering the specs in this. And testing the torch, you can see that it is fairly bright, so that'll definitely help during night shots. It honestly looks brighter than the Z60, which you can kind of see there that the LEDs are brighter on the 9S Pro. Maybe it's just me, but I can definitely see it. We also do have a quick shortcut to change the refresh rate. It's set at intelligence adjustment, which means it'll switch to 60Hz, 90Hz, or 120Hz whenever it needs to. I will leave it on 120Hz for the entire video, which it's up the top there, it says 120Hz. I'll give this a call and see how it sounds. That sounds sick. I'll splice in a quick call quality test for you, so you can hear what it sounds like. This is the earpiece quality of the Redmagic 9S Pro. This is what it sounds like on Telstra, and the speaker is nice and loud. Pretty much the same quality from the Nubia, and hopefully there's not too much interference. My microphone does pick up a lot of interference, so hopefully it's not too bad. Let's move on to the microphone and have a listen to that. And the microphone quality of the Redmagic 9S Pro sounds a little something like this. Once again, nice and clear for my testing, and honestly, there's not really too much else to say. Sounds great, so let's move on. You just heard the call quality. That was with Telstra, and we do have 5G and via LTE as well. Like the Nubia, there is a bunch of personalization options, but what I want to check is the light strip. There it is. There's the LEDs just there, and they also pop up on the sides with the triggers as well, but you can only have it as just these 8 colors just here. You can't have red. You can choose orange, but you can't have red. Wish there was a way to customize it. We also do have a bunch of wallpapers on here which all look amazing, but as I said, the display is the same on the Z60 Ultra, which is a 1080p display, and with gaming, this will be more than enough. We also have an always on display, which there's several options you can customize. You can also customize the fingerprint, and you can also do effects as well. Like that, which looks pretty cool. And there's our cooling fan, which you can actually customize the fan start sound if you want. You can have it to anything. To set your own custom sound for the fan, the file format has to be MP3, and it has to go longer than a minute. So I've come up with this. You just go straight to the cooling fan and off you go. Whee! I think that's quite nifty. It's silly, but it's nifty. And you can have any sound you want. You could have a lot of fun with that. There it is there. All the multiple colors in there. So when I get to the teardown, I'll definitely take a look at it, but you can also see it through the ventilation just there. It is pretty neat, I've got to admit. Surprisingly enough, you can actually feel air being pushed out from the fan. Even though it's a tiny little one, there is still some air being pushed out. I don't know if you can hear it or not. It is quiet, you're not going to notice it. When you have it on fast cooling, that's when you can start to hear the fan. It is blowing out a decent amount of air, to be fairly honest, and I'll hold up to the microphone. There you go. So when you're using this for phone calls and you've got the fan on, the fan will shut off. But if you've got the fan on max and you're gaming, just use some headphones. You've got the headphone jack, may as well use it, and there you go. You won't be able to hear it. And of course, if you block up this vent, then you block the air from getting in. So you'll need to have that ventilation open for the fan to do its thing. But I did notice that having the fan on all the time does drain the battery life ever so slightly. So keep that in mind. So I'll definitely see how warm this gets during gaming. One thing that has been changed is the sliding switch. This is not a customizable switch. It is to launch the Redmagic app, which looks a little something like this. And this is where you can add your games and do all sorts of settings, including the fans. And the stereo speakers sound really, really good so far, but I'll have to wait until I do the speaker test on this. And then once you're done with the Redmagic app, you can just slide it and switches off. So it would have been good to have that as a customizable key, but unfortunately there's nothing here for it. I will check for updates and see if that feature gets added back. Now the battery on this is 6,500 milliamp hours, so 500 milliamp hours more than on the Z60 Ultra, which is honestly great to see. Combined with the 80 watt fast charging, should get the battery back up to a decent percent in about half an hour. But I will do a battery test on this and I'll let you know the results of it. I've done the battery test and charging test for this, and I'm extremely happy with the results I got from this. So with moderate to heavy usage, you're looking at about 2 days from this. Almost the same performance that I got with the Nubia, but you've got the extra 500 milliamp hours that does help in this. If you're going to be just using this purely for gaming, you're going to see the battery life drain, of course. But if you're just using this as a normal day-to-day phone with moderate gaming here and there, social media and stuff, you'll get 2 days out of this, no problems. And as for charging this back up, it is faster than the Nubia. It took an hour on the Nubia to get from 0 to 100%, whereas on this, I got these results. So I started the charging test at 12:56 PM at 0%. In 10 minutes, it had already reached 30%. Then at 20 minutes, it was at 60%. By 30 minutes, it was at 85%. And then finally reaching 100% in 42 minutes, which they did advertise 35 minutes from 0% to 100%, but I got 42 minutes. But seeing it go from 0% to 50% in about 15 minutes is absolutely awesome for this. I can also say, when charging this back up, the phone and charger do get quite warm. So please keep that in mind. In security, I'll just quickly check the fingerprint, which I just went to lock the phone. I'm used to a power button being here, but the volume rocker is right there, so it's just a little bit down there. But face unlock, easy, and fingerprint, nice and fast. I'll also check to see if there's an update, which we do have a security patch. During my testing, I've received 2 updates for this, which have now bumped up the security update to August 1st, 2024. I haven't noticed any changes with the system. I thought they may have added customization for this switch, but unfortunately it hasn't been added back in. Would have loved to have seen the option to have it customized, but it is what it is. And in About Phone, we're running Android 14. The extended RAM is on by default, but I'll just leave it. And we've got the model, CPU being the 8 Gen 3 leading version, the screen resolution, battery capacity, and that is pretty much all that's in settings. So a major difference between both of these units is the camera quality. But I'll still do a camera test with these to test them out and see how they are. But the front camera is going to be exactly the same as it was on the Z60 Ultra, being the underscreen one. It's not unusable, but in low light scenarios, it's very, very blurry. The camera app is the same as it was on the previous unit, and we have the 24mm standard as well as the 14mm ultra wide there. We do have OIS on the main camera and we can film up to 8K 30 FPS, but during the video test I'll just do 1080p 60 FPS. I'm going to need a couple of days to test this out. I'll try the camera, I'll load up a bunch of apps on this so we can try gaming, we'll do benchmarks and see which one of these units is better.
there's Ripley.
Hi. See, you can see I'm recording with it, and the fan's also still working as well.
But there's Ripley.
Not that you can sort of see her. This is with OIS on as well. As you can see, it is doing its job, which is good. But I'm just going to be doing the video test with 1080p 60 FPS. I'll try 4K and 8K and report back the results, but I won't show them in the video. But this is what it looks like, and as I said, OIS is working. All the colors look pretty good. Autofocus and manual focus as well. Yep, looking good. I'm fairly happy with this, but considering there's no price between this and the Z60 Ultra, you'd probably want to go with the one that has better cameras in it. But I mean, this is okay. See, Zenny looks good, and the sky looks pretty good, but the faraway aircon with a 10 times digital zoom looks a little something like that. Let me try ultra wide and see how that goes. Now this is ultra wide at 1080p 60 FPS. We do have stabilization, which is great to see, and there is a decent field of view with the ultra wide camera, so I'm pretty happy with that. Colors also look really good for what they are, and we'll just see the faraway aircon with ultra wide. See, look at that. And if we go for a zoom, that should be zooming with the ultra wide. Yep, that's 5 times, and that doesn't look the best, but at least you can zoom with it, which is good. All right, testing nighttime video with the Redmagic 9S Pro. This is with the LED on, and it's super bright, and it looks good. Oh, hello, there's a friend there. I didn't even notice him. Yeah, no, this is pretty good. It lights up the whole yard. You can see, well, kind of. See telemetry. No, it is super bright. It's really, really bright, so I am happy with the quality of this. I reckon this LED is brighter than the Z60 Ultra, but that could be just me. Testing the front camera quality of the Redmagic 9S Pro, and it looks the same as the Z60 Ultra. There's no difference. Still very blurry. I mean, it's not too bad outside, but when you have it in low light conditions, it's very blurry. Once again, should have had a hole punch, but they want the whole full display thing. It's okay, it'll be fine for most scenarios, but just know that in low light, it's not going to look the best. But, I mean, yeah, as I said, it's fair enough. You've just seen all the photos and videos that I've taken with the Redmagic 9S Pro, and I've got to say the performance with the rear camera was okay. It's not the best. The photos from this do have plenty of detail and are quite vibrant, but some details do lack here and there. Same goes with the ultra wide. I did notice that it got a little bit messy if you zoom right in, and I guess the 2 megapixel depth sensor did work, because I did do some photos of the Froggo and it did blur the background, but I'm not sure if that was actually using that camera or if it was just using the main sensor and adding some extra to it. And like zooming with the main sensor as well, since we don't have a telephoto lens on this, the faraway aircon doesn't look great when zoomed in, but you know, it does its best. Even though we do have 2 50 megapixel sensors on the back, the standard shots come out in 13 megapixels, and that's what most people would probably stick on when using this. You can use the full size mode, but honestly, there's not too much difference. So I'll display Lemon Tree on the left, standard, Lemon Tree on the right is full size. And yeah, you might be able to notice some small differences, but there's not too much. Videos with the rear camera also turned out fairly good as well, considering we have OIS on the main sensor. It did look pretty good with 1080p 60 FPS, 4K 60 FPS, and 8K 30 FPS. Definitely don't look as good as they do on the Nubia, but they're fairly good for what they are. And now coming to the front camera, once again, same as I've seen on the Nubia. Photos did turn out quite blurry, same with videos as well. It does pick up detail, but it uses AI to try and help with the details and stuff, because I'm going to show you a night shot that I did with this. So look what it does to my eyes. Can you see how it sort of tried to smooth out my face? This looks like an AI generated image, to be fairly honest with you. So I'm going to say that the front camera itself is decent, but because it's using the underscreen technology, we're just not quite getting the performance that we should from a normal hole punch camera. But it should be okay in most scenarios, but in low light, that's when you're going to see it become a bit blurry. So all up for the cameras, I think they're fairly acceptable, but if we're drawing a comparison between both of these units that are priced exactly the same, the Nubia definitely has better cameras on it than this. Front cameras are the same, but the rear cameras on the Nubia definitely outweigh this for sure. And with me testing this out for a week, everything's been working great. I haven't really had any other issues to say about this. It honestly really feels like I'm just using the Nubia again. So at this point in time, I want to start showing you some benchmarks and gaming from this, as well as speaker test and stuff. So we'll start at the top. So browser, I really don't need to show you because we have flagship specs in this. Social media and browsing is going to be no issues. So that's all good there. Device info hardware, we can quickly jump into, which there it is there, Redmagic 9S Pro. All of the specs are exactly what I described at the start. Even though it just says 8 Gen 3, you can see that the performance core is at 3.4 GHz instead of 3.3. It does show all the cameras there, but we only have the 50 megapixel main sensor and 16 megapixel listed. Rest assured, all cameras are all good. This is not a welcome. So thermal at the moment, we can see it's about 30 degrees all around, and I've got the cooling fan just on minimum. But if we bump the fan up to maximum, let's see what happens to the temperatures. So we're hovering still around 30 at the moment, and I'll just make sure the vents are taking air in. It says in the advertising that the cooling system can cut temperatures up to 19.5 degrees. So just on standby, with the cooling fan on max, I'm not seeing that much of a difference. It's very, very minimal. So when I jump into games, we'll check to see will the temperatures go with the fan on max and then off. See if there is a major difference. So I think next up is Geekbench. So I will do a test with Geekbench 5 and Geekbench 6. So starting with Geekbench 5. So I've got the Nubia on the left and the Redmagic on the right. All the clusters are the same except for cluster 4, which is 3.3 GHz on the Nubia and 3.4 on the Redmagic. So let's see what the difference is going to be. According to Geekbench 5, for single core, the Redmagic is better by 2 points. But in multi, the Nubia is just ahead by 66 points, which is not a whole lot. So basically, it's the exact same thing. It's only 100 megahertz difference. It's not going to be completely game changing. I was expecting the Redmagic to be a bit more than that, but this is Geekbench 5. Let's try Geekbench 6 and see how that goes. Once again, the Nubia is outperforming the Redmagic ever so slightly. I mean, they are still good numbers, don't get me wrong. As I said in the Geekbench 5 test, I was just expecting a little bit more from the Redmagic. But as I also said, it's only 100 megahertz at the end of the day, so it's close enough for what it is. I was just curious to see the difference between the two, and I think I've got my answer there. So let's move on. And coming into thermals immediately after Geekbench 6, I did see it jump to about 37 degrees there, but I will see what it gets to during the gaming test. Once again, with hot apps, you can't uninstall this. It's just stuck there. Same with hot games. You can't uninstall them. They're all just, I've accidentally downloaded a game. That's okay, I'm not going to be testing it. I've also put Alien Isolation on here. I didn't realize that you can get a trial version of it, so I will be trying that on any other devices that I review that can handle it, just to see how it goes. In regards to maps, I did a GPS test as well, walked around in my backyard, found my location quite fine, so no problems with that. Stealth Warrior has installed, but I can just uninstall that. That's easy. We're left with YouTube and the speaker test, so I think we'll open up YouTube to do the Costa Rica 4K test. It's going to play at 4K 60 FPS, not a problem, but I'll just show you how it goes anyways. If you can also notice, there are some scratches in the screen. I've had this in and out of my pocket for the last week, and somehow I've scratched the screen accidentally. Luckily, there's a screen protector on there. I can replace it if need be. But this is Costa Rica in 4K 60 FPS with HDR. It's just kicked in, and looks great. Looks good. Not a problem. As I said in the Nubia review, it's a 1080p display. It's not super high resolution like other flagships out there, but for gaming and stuff like that, 1080p is more than enough, and that's what it's looking like. Pretty good. Look at him. He looks cute. You can see all the details in him too. Look at that. Not too often that I can see Costa Rica in this much detail. That's a YouTube test. I'm convinced the speakers are better in this than the Nubia, so let's give them a shot. I think because the channel's at the top here, that's what's making it sound louder. So let's see. We've definitely got some powerful speakers in this. And if I test the top one, there is a bit of an imbalance, but it's barely noticeable. The stereo effect is more prominent on this than the Nubia. I can definitely say that because you don't have the top speaker grill. That channel's not there, so it's coming through the front earpiece. But if you're gaming, you might cover up the speaker grills accidentally. But luckily, you've got that headphone jack. That's a saving grace of this, the headphone jack. Yeah. Sounds the same on the Nubia. But with the top speaker, there is an imbalance. Bit more noticeable on the Nubia, but not by much though. So speaker test for both of these passes with flying colours. So I think we'll finally jump into gaming and show you what the buttons do. So before I start gaming, I want to make sure that the fan is on balanced, and I will flick the switch to go into Redmagic Super Power mode. And this is where you can customize everything in here for gaming. Got options to adjust the screen there, Performance, we've got fairly low clock speeds on both the CPU and GPU, but you can have eco mode, balance, and rise to just push a bit more performance out of this if you want. GPU settings as well, standard, power saving, high quality, or custom. Probably just leave it on standard. You've also got video recording here as well, so I'll launch Genshin, and I'll show you how this works. While Genshin is starting up, you can swipe to the side here to open up a quick menu, and you can now see the clock speed on the CPU and the GPU there. We can switch on a small little widget there to show what frames we're getting, but there's no way to really show the thermals that are on this currently, which I thought would have been here because you want to see how the thermals are with the fan on and fan off. I do have DeviceInfoHW open in the background, and I can go straight back to that if need be. So with Genshin finally loaded up, game runs perfectly fine. Everything is up to the absolute highest. And as you can see on the little counter there, it does say 60 FPS, so that's all good. Now, for the touch buttons, how they work is actually quite simple. You can select both buttons there, and you can have like single tap, long press, rapid fire, motion sensing, and all that sort of stuff, but you just drag them to wherever you want. So I've got LNR on attack. If I exit out of this, you can see that that's how that would work. And that does definitely help with gaming. I'm so used to Genshin and using the controls here that it's just kind of weird to use that. It's definitely helpful if you're playing mobile games. You can use those shoulder buttons to assign to whatever you need to help you with gaming. I'm not a big mobile gamer. I don't play a lot of mobile games. I prefer just playing on the PC. But if people want to do gaming on the go, this is plenty for it. Let's go attack some enemies just so I can sort of show you how that works. So I can do that, but I can pause it, go to the buttons, and now if I have R to rapid fire, then it would do a little something like this. So it's just pressing it continuously, and I'm just holding it. Really nifty feature to have those. They are just two buttons. It's not a full gamepad. For most of these sort of mobile games that just have like one attack button, one shoot button sort of thing, those two buttons, definitely helpful there. What about thermals then? So currently at the moment, the fan is on balanced, and if I quickly switch it off and go to DeviceInfoHW, we can see it's about 46 degrees right there. So now if I bump the fan up to the absolute maximum and play again, let's see if it's any different. The back still feels quite warm, but I'll just see if it's any different when I go back into DeviceInfoHW. I just wish there was a better way that I could check thermals to sort of show you all that it is working. But look, you've got a fan in this, you've got a vapor chamber. It's gonna help, but I'm not sure it's gonna be by 19.5 degrees though. Let's just see. And it appeared to be 47 there with the fan on maximum. Now I'll have it with the fan completely off. It might be just me, but I can feel it actually kind of heating up a bit more with the fan completely off. Yeah, 50 degrees, if you've just seen it there, that it was on. So that fan does help ever so slightly. It's not a whole big difference because it's only a tiny little fan like that, but it does something, and that's cool to see. So when I tear it down, I'll get a better look at that fan just to see what it looks like, and I'll show you how much air it can actually push. Let's bump everything up to the absolute maximum. And this is the first time playing Alien Isolation on the channel, but I just want to see the temperatures with a game like this. Considering this is a PC game, let's see how it goes. We're getting 33 FPS. At the moment. I thought the game would run a little bit better than that, but let's just walk around. I mean, it still looks nice, don't get me wrong, the game looks great. Now that I've had the game running for a bit, let me check DeviceInfoHW. Ah, there we go. No, 50 degrees, and that was with the fan on full, as well as the CPU and GPU being overclocked as well. Now, if I turn the fan off, let's see what the thermals get to now. Oh, yeah, I can sort of feel it getting a little bit more warmer, but it just said 47 there. I guess this is really sort of inconclusive because I'm going to DeviceInfoHW instead of seeing real-time thermals on screen. As I said, the cooling fan will help, but it's just very, very minimal. And it's best to have it on balanced the entire time when playing games on this. And I also forgot I had the RGB strip on the whole time during gaming, which does also impact battery life ever so slightly. Alright, so my thoughts on the Redmagic 9S Pro. Just as itself and not comparing to the Nubia Z60 Ultra. It's a great performing gaming phone. I really like the little fan, even though it doesn't do too much, it's still cool. The RGB on the back is also cool, and the shoulder buttons give this a bit more advantage in games. The 6500 mAh battery and 80 watt fast charging is great. The cameras aren't anything too fantastic on this, but they're good enough. Not so much the front camera, but I'll come back to that soon. And this colorway, I honestly don't see anything too exciting with it. This is why I'm making this video, because of the debut of the Frost colorway, but I just think the transparent black design they have looks way better, but that's just me. Now, if we do compare it side by side with the Z60 Ultra, which both phones are currently retailing for $649 US, it's a bit of a tough choice to pick the winner. winner. Both phones offer great performance for the price, but the Z60 Ultra ultimately has better cameras, an IP rating, and the system on chip performs almost the same as the leading version. However, the Redmagic has all the bells and whistles in the cooling department, the additions to make it better for gaming, and a headphone jack, which is really appreciated. The complete flat edges of the Redmagic make it more appealing than the large, chunky camera bump on the Z60 Ultra, but I just find myself leaning towards the Z60 Ultra as I can do everything I can do on the Redmagic in terms of gaming, but I lose the headphone jack, which at this point I don't mind since the Nubia has that mute switch that can be customized, and that's a feature I really love. We also get slower charging on the Nubia and a lower battery capacity, but both phones held up very well in my battery tests anyways. I also wish Nubia, or Redmagic, ditched the under-display camera and just had a hole punch, because that really impacts the performance for the front camera. It is a good camera, but having the layer of pixels over it just makes photos not the best in some scenarios, but it's still acceptable. And you know how I feel about 2 megapixel depth and macro sensors, and having that on the Redmagic just feels a bit cheap, and they could have easily replaced it with a basic telephoto camera. It would have been cool, but hey, you can't have everything. And I also don't like the hot apps and hot games on the Redmagic that can't be removed unless you use ADB to get rid of them, but that's just a minor setback. Really, it's the same phone at the end of the day, since they have the same screen, almost the same build quality, and practically the same UI on top of Android. It's just that the Nubia has some advantages over the Redmagic, and the Redmagic has advantages over the Nubia. It's just really up to you at the end of the day. If you had both phones in front of you with a spec sheet to the side of each device, what would you honestly pick? I think most people would probably go for the Nubia, since the gaming stuff is really just a gimmick. Hey, people are all for that gimmick. I do like those little additions, but for a more flagship experience, the Nubia wins. There are plenty of other flagships and gaming phones on the market at the moment, but I'm just working with what I've tested, and I think that's my thoughts on this. Once again, I do like the Redmagic. It is a great performer with a solid build and solid battery life, but the Nubia Z60 Ultra is the same price and just nudges the Redmagic 9S Pro out of the way to make it what I'd personally go with. That's my thoughts on the Redmagic 9S Pro, so I'm going to tear this down to see what exactly we're dealing with inside of this, because I know I didn't tear down the Nubia because of the water resistance, but because this doesn't have an IP rating, it should be fairly easy to get into. I didn't show this in the review, but I did test the headphone jack. Works as it should. I didn't test the IR blaster, but that should work if you just download an app for it off the Play Store. Now, people have probably already done teardowns of this, but I haven't looked up anything. I want to experience this for myself to see how easy repairability is on this. I'm going to need a decent amount of heat, but I don't want to blast this with too much heat in case I melt the LED strip or the fan. That's actually fairly easy to get into. I just got to be careful of the LED strip at the top here. And there we go. We're in. And wow, that's some cooling there. All right, so that's the back off there. While I do like the Frost colorway, the transparent one they released of this looks much better. If you're into sort of a more minimalistic design, then this might be for you, but I would prefer transparent. There's our little tiny fan there. It is adorable. And we also have a dual tone LED flash, and that's definitely brighter than the Nubia as well. With this massive piece of copper right over the battery, that'll definitely help. While it's not a vapor chamber, it's just a piece of copper tape, it's still cool to see it over the battery. Any cooling is better than none. So taking the bottom plastics off, we've got the loudspeaker just there, which is a decently sized one. And now we can also see some of the components for the side buttons there, which are on these flex ribbons that connect to the bottom board. There's a bunch of antennas going along there. We do actually have a rubber ring around the USB Type-C port, so there is some measures to keep water out, but obviously with the open ventilation areas, water will make its way in if it's submerged. So just taking off this little piece, I thought this was the actual LEDs themselves, but no, they're right there built onto this little board at the top. So this is just the little diffuser that helps push the light to the 9S logo. All right, let's take the top plastics off, which just pops off like so. And there's the top earpiece, which is actually a bit more exposed than I thought. It is encased in its own little housing, but the reason why it's a little bit more exposed is because of the channel at the top there. So it's really awesome to see. So there we go. There's the little cooling fan there. And we do have some thermal paste on this metal piece here that's right on top of the processor. So the heat straight from the processor is going straight through that fan and pushing it out. There is red gaskets around the hole for the fan, as well as the intake. So as I said, there is some measures to keep water out, but no IP rating, just be careful. Nice and easy to take out. That is the dual cell battery, 3250 milliamp hours on each cell, which explains why it was able to charge faster. As you see, there's a warning there that says don't touch. I'm not following that warning. So if I peel back the flex ribbons here, you can see a massive vapor chamber in this. So it goes underneath the battery and then underneath the motherboard, which, yeah, that's really cool to see. How did that happen? I've accidentally got thermal paste in the connector just there. I don't know how it happened, but it's happened, so I'm going to need to take the board out to clean it. Now to take off the motherboard, we've got quite a few antennas that need to be taken off. Now there's one Phillips head screw holding down the motherboard, but there's also two standoffs holding down the motherboard as well, much like iPhones. And finally the motherboard can pull away from the frame. That was a bit tedious to pop out, but there is plenty of thermal paste on this. It's everywhere. Kudos to them for including that much thermal paste. And yeah, you can see that the vapor chamber continues straight underneath the processor there. And look how tiny the headphone jack is. I know I might go on a little bit of a tangent here, but that's the headphone jack there. That's all manufacturers need to put in their phones. I know water resistance and stuff like that, I understand that, but that's still appreciated in today's day and age, but hey, it is what it is. We've got our 50 megapixel ultra wide camera just there, not a whole lot to it. So we have the 50 megapixel main sensor there with OIS, and the 2 megapixel depth sensor, which does do something ever so slightly. It's nothing too special. It would have been cool for a telephoto to be added into this, but you know, it is what it is. On the front of the board, we've got the front camera just there, as well as the light sensors, and I almost broke the board trying to take this out of the frame. Taking a look at the frame, you can see that the buttons are just on little flex cables that connect straight to the motherboard. That's it. And the switch and power buttons are all part of one big flex cable that goes straight there to the motherboard. Fairly sophisticated innards, I gotta say that. With everything back down to place, I just want to see if it still works. Hopefully it does. Yes, it should be fine. So let's see how bright the LEDs are on the back. That's the LEDs there, which they are quite bright. But then you've got the diffuser on the back. Is it called a diffuser? I'm not sure, but that then pushes the light towards that little area to make the 9S glow. So let's have a look at the little cooling fan. It's so adorable. You can see all the LEDs going along in there. It honestly isn't pushing that much air. Can you just see the napkin? That's how much air it's blowing. That's at the absolute maximum too. I don't know if it's 22,000 RPM or not. It's hard to say, because if I slow it down, I don't know. Could be, but it is such an adorable little fan though. I have to say, it is so cute. I know I could have taken the whole cooling fan apart, but I'd rather keep this all working. So that, my friends, is the Redmagic 9S Pro review done. I hope you've all enjoyed this one. While I didn't go super in-depth with everything like I usually do, I think I covered most of the main points with this, and I hope this one helped you decide if this is the next phone for you, if you think it's pretty cool with the fans and RGB and stuff like that, or if you think that the standard Z60 Ultra is better. You'll have to let me know down in the comments below what you would prefer at the end of the day, considering both of them are the same price. As I said in the conclusion, I would much prefer the Z60, but folks out there might want to go with the Redmagic 9S Pro purely because of the fan and RGB, and the faster charging as well. But this is just all my honest opinion at the end of the day. Massive thank you to Redmagic for sending the sample out to me for review. I really do appreciate it. I just wanted to give an honest and in-depth look at this, and as a part 2 from looking at the Nubia Z60 Ultra to this, I just wanted to see the differences. And I will clarify once again, all opinions in this one have been my own. I've not been paid by Redmagic or Nubia to say anything good about this. They sent the phone out to me for review and asked me to do a video on it, and that's what I've done. If you want to check out the Redmagic, I'll leave a link in the description below. It's not an affiliate link, it's just there for your convenience. If you want to go there and click it, it's up to you. I'm not going to earn anything from any clicks. You can jump onto Google and see if you can find it anywhere cheaper. It's completely up to you. And if you're still hearing me ramble, that means you've made it to the end of this one. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit back and watch me review this. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed this one. I know it's another sample review, but it was just sort of a last minute thing that I just thought, you know what, I'd really like to take a look at it to see the difference between the two chips. And well, as you've seen, there's not much of a whole difference between them. But if you sat through the whole entire thing without using timestamps, I appreciate you so much. But if you had to use them, that is completely understandable. If you just want to go straight to gaming or benchmarks or teardown, that's completely fine. That's why they're there. I really do hope you enjoyed this. I don't get to take a look at a lot of higher end hardware on the channel. When I do, it's kind of fun, but I don't want to do it all the time. And because I'm taking a break soon, it's just kind of like, I may as well get it done. You'll have to let me know down in the comments what you thought of this one. If you think gaming phones are cool, or if you think gaming phones are not cool. Alright folks, thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. And as always, take care, stay safe, bigger people. I'll see you in the next video, which should be the job lot that everyone's been asking me to deliver. I gotta edit the rest of it, but I hope to get that out soon. But until the next time I see you all, take care of yourselves, keep being awesome, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye for now. If you like this content, feel free to leave a like or a dislike if you didn't. Thanks heaps for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.